Alright, you guys, so this is our last step of how to analyze a primary source, and it's writing your HAP statement. As a fun little side note, I just accidentally pushed the webcam screen capture instead of just the screen capture, and I got to see what I look like for the first time today. And it's super great that I decided not to include myself in these videos for you guys. That's all I'm going to say. So now that we have that motivating us, I'm going to show you how to write a HAP statement right now, and you're lucky enough to get to see where the magic happens. And when I say the magic, I mean all of your guys' lessons that I create for you. So as I type, please just be sure to note what it is that I'm adding to my HAP, why you think I'm adding that, and I want you to take notes too, because when it comes time for your DBQs, which are document-based questions that you will have to answer to pass this course and to pass the exam, you're going to want to know how to piece this together on your own, especially when you're completely lost and you don't know where to start. So I already showed you guys where to start, which is with your 5 W's. And then our second step is marking the text to make sure we have a deep understanding of the text entirely. And our last step is this, our HAP. So let's just review what the document was about. We read a lot about the king and how he was treated, and then we briefly read about the Buddhist monks who live there, their traditions, who they can marry, who they can't, who gets to be married and who can't. We read briefly about some of the customs of the commoners, and then we read about some let's see. Oh, we've got stuff about the soil here, right? And what people plant and produce to survive in this region. But then we end up back in a description of, oh wait, here we go. We end up in a description of native products to this region. All right, so my HAP statement. First, I want to think about who wrote this, right? If I'm thinking about who wrote this, I can make our first part of this, because look, this is how you identify the HAP. You give us the historical context, the audience, the purpose, and the point of view. So the point of view, you remember it's coming from a Chinese, what was he, you guys? He was a Chinese custom inspector. So I'm going to say the Kingdom of Angkor primary source document, because the Kingdom of Angkor is our title, and this is a primary source document, was written from the perspective of a commoner, right? Because he's an inspection officer. He's definitely not the king, and from what we read, the king is the one who is valued the most in this society. So I'll say the Kingdom of Angkor primary source document was written from the perspective of a commoner who details the treatment of the king, and I'll put right here, the king who was valued above all else in society, and touches on, spelling correctly would be helpful, ignore my email, you guys, and touches briefly. I'm going to say briefly because not all of our details are about the commoners. Most of our details are about the king, at least the very fine details in here. So I'm going to say, and touches briefly on the, here we go, and touches briefly on the cultural aspects of this society. So that's a really kind of blanket statement on this. If I want to make it more specific, and I think I do, just because this doesn't seem to do our document enough justice, I'm going to say, I'm going to put a period right here, and then I'm going to add in cultural norms, right? Because it does detail cultural norms, and I've got cultural right here and society, but the word norms takes care of the word society because norms tells us that this is something that everybody practiced. So I'm going to take away this part because I just covered that with 2 words. I'm going to say cultural norms of the commoners included oh wait, I want to add that briefly part back in. So I'm going to say briefly detailed are the cultural norms of the people. Feels a little bit nicer than commoners, right? And I still pull in the fact that we're not talking about anybody besides the king that much. So I'll say briefly detailed are the cultural norms of the people who practiced Buddhism, because we've been talking about religion this whole time, right? I should definitely mention it in there. Which what? Which dictated, oops, much of the society. There we go. So now I've included our part about religion, which has been the main focus of this unit so far. I included the part about the king, which is the main focus of our reading. I touched briefly on the people, the commoners in the society, who were barely mentioned in our document, so that's good. And then what do I also talk about? I talk about cultural norms, right? And I tie them all to the religion, which has been our main overarching idea for this unit so far. So this is my HAP statement. Obviously, you guys aren't going to come up with something directly identical to this or even along these same lines when it comes time for you to analyze your primary source, which is going to be document B, and that's absolutely okay. It took me a lot of schooling to get to this point, and I had a lot of teachers tear up a lot of my papers and ideas before I got here. So please don't feel worried about the kind of language that I'm using, or if you think that this is out of your reach. All that matters to me is that you put an effort into this. And keep in mind, everything that goes in a HAP statement should come directly from the reading as pointed out in step 3. So as you guys go through this, just try to phrase it that way. And notice I didn't just make this one pretty sentence like I thought I would. Sometimes it can be 2 sentences, and that's okay, so long as you're not harping on anything. All right, you guys are going to be doing your own document in just a few minutes, so good luck, and I'm so excited to read what you have to say.